I had a quick look at our attendee list before the webinar today, and it looks like we have food and drink exporters and professionals from Quebec, Ontario, and BC. And it looks like we have people joining from China and Singapore as well. So that's fantastic. I also see that we have several of our current clients who've joined us today. Welcome Tuan Stoltz from Dare Foods, Joe Will from Struan Winery, Chauncey Carter from Niagara Falls Craft Distillers, and Patrick Egger from Bariatrics Nutrition, and welcome everyone. Whoop. There we go. For today's agenda, I will start with a presentation on the 4 warnings we have for Canadian food and drink exporters, and touch briefly on a strategy that has worked well for our current clients. I will then pass the paddle over to Tom Cumming for his expertise and practical advice on market strategies, and then finish with CFEA event and support from Susan Powell. Now, fair warning, I will follow up at the end of this presentation with a hardball sales pitch on Canoe trading services before we launch into a 10 to 15 minute Q&A session. Now, please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any point during our presentation, and we will try to address them during the Q&A. Now, before we begin, some of you may be wondering just who Canoe Global Trading Company is. Well, in 1986, CACL opened its doors to promote Canada-China trade. Over the years, we've helped many Canadian food and drink brands, many of whom are listed here, explore and expand their business to China and across Asia. In 2021, CACL launched Canoe Global Trading Company to leverage digital and virtual trade show capabilities around the globe. The Canoe is Canada's first and fastest growing online trading company. So that's who we are. Now, let's begin our session. 4 warnings and a strategy for China in 2022. So please note, the opinions in the first part of this presentation are from Canoe Global Trading Company. They are informed by 35 plus years of experience in Canada-China trade relations, and they're based on reporting from the Globe and Mail, CBC, the World Trade Organization, in addition to some papers from China as well, like the South China Morning Post, the Global Times, Caixin Global, and other publications as well. So to start with the World Trade Organization. Sorry. As the old Chinese curse goes, we are living in interesting times. The world economy is going through economic, health, and climate shocks at a rate that has never before been seen in our history. According to the World Trade Organization's 2021 World Trade Report, our global economy is increasingly exposed to risks and shocks which cause significant economic impacts. We're seeing natural shocks, technological and operational shocks, socioeconomic shocks. In the same report, the WTO recommends that in order to mitigate these risks, economies should diversify and deepen their relationships to mitigate the impacts from these shocks. And that will benefit both international trade, but also make domestic economies much more resilient to future shocks. Now, spoiler alert, we are also recommending this strategy to mitigate the impacts of shocks in China. Now on to the 4 warnings. Warning number 1. Natural shocks in China, Canada, and the rest of the world will continue. In BC, the floods have shut down the Port of Vancouver, and in China, in the first 3 quarters of this year, natural disasters have caused a direct economic loss of $44.5 billion US. And as for COVID, while Western media has not reported any cases in China for many months, Chinese media has stated that this month alone, there were a record 93 new cases of the Delta variant, and Beijing is limiting domestic flights from high-risk regions. COVID continues to impact business travel by requiring COVID tests within 48 hours of entrance into trade shows, going on flights, staying in hotels outside your own region. We saw the impact of this policy at ProWine and FHC in Shanghai earlier this month. And we know that it is going to continue well into next year. As for technological and operational shocks, our warning number 2 is that trade will change faster in China. We all know that doing business in China is challenging, to say the least. The pace of change is one of those challenges which creates operational shocks. Look at the change in freight rates that has just happened in the past year. Freight from China to North America this past year was up over 300%. And then last month, it dropped by 50%. This not only impacts the cost of freight that we're sending over, but it impacts the availability of containers from Canada to China as well. In addition, when we look at the application and enforcement of government policies, that is another reason why doing business in China is so challenging. For example, in August, Beijing issued a decree to crack down on what was known as walled gardens that big tech companies had on e-commerce data and on advertising. 2 months later, Alibaba's net income dropped 87%. Now, we're not saying it was solely because of this crackdown, but that certainly didn't help. Finally, the General Administration of China Customs has mandated that all food and beverage manufacturers who export to China must register on their single window platform in order to import goods into China on January 1st, 2022. This was decreed earlier this year in April, I believe, but only this month in November was the portal actually available in English. So we're going to work with all of our clients to register in time so their manufacturer registration number can be applied to labels in time for imports that'll happen in January. Warning number 3, China will continue to assert its position around the world. It will continue to position itself against our largest trading partner, the US. It will continue to assert its one China policy with regards to Taiwan, and it will flex its international might with other markets in Asia, like Japan and India. Look at what happened to Australia. They didn't agree with China's public position on the World Health Organization's investigation into the origins of COVID. China immediately hiked tariffs up so high on products ranging from wine to coal that the Australian economy is currently now decoupling from China. China's response to that, they issued a list of 14 grievances which Australia must resolve before resuming normal trade relations with China. This is not the end of this type of struggle. And that leads to our 4th warning. Canada-China relations have entered a new era. China is a much larger economy than Canada, and they're not afraid to use their weight. Canada is facing increased pressure to lead the cause for humanitarian crises in China, like hostage diplomacy, the genocide of Uyghur minorities in Xinjiang province. Pressure will continue to mount on Canada, and China will not take it well. When Meng Wanzhou was detained 3 years ago and the 2 Michaels were subsequently arrested, the impact on our exports of wine to China was immediate and significant. Only in 2021 did we see a return to normal business because of our strategy to deepen our penetration in market. Now, to gain clarity on China's position to Canada-China relations, just look at the comments from Xi Jinping and Ambassador Song. Ambassador Song says mutual respect and mutual benefit are the basic principles for developing economic and trade relations between our 2 countries. Mutual respect. And from Xi Jinping, they say, China will be a responsible stakeholder willing to engage as long as there are no ideological attacks. All right, doesn't get any clearer than that. So why on earth would a Canadian food and drinks company want to export to China? And I think everybody on the call today understands why. Since CACL opened its doors in 1986, China has risen to be a commercial superpower. In 2018, they had imports of just over $2.1 trillion US. They are now the world's #1 export market for wine and spirits, for beer, for lobster, for seafood, edible oils, maple syrup, imported food, beef, pork, fruit, grains, and many other food and drink categories. Quite simply, if you're not doing business in China, then you're missing out on the world's biggest opportunity. So how do you do that? Given all the shocks, all the risks, all the warnings that we've got for doing business in China, what does Canoe recommend in terms of a strategy for Canadian food and drink exports? Quite simply, diversify and deepen your exports. It's the same thing that the World Trade Organization is recommending to economies around the world. You want to diversify within China. You want to diversify across Asia, and you want to diversify around the globe. You also want to deepen the relationship that you have with your existing agents in China to better understand the sales challenges that they have and better support the strategies that are promoting your brands. A couple of examples. So the first example we have is with our client Struan Winery. CACL has represented Struan in China and Asia for over 20 years. 3 years ago, sales dropped dramatically. In 2021, we rebuilt sales by building a deeper relationship and leveraging the diverse agency network that we have within China. And the results from that, we saw a 139% increase in sales in this past fiscal year over the prior 2 fiscal years combined. And for 2022, by leveraging this strategy further, we're expecting another 5 to 10 shipments that will go to China next year. Another example is what we've been able to do with a new client this year, Niagara Falls Craft Distillers. So Niagara Falls makes delicious Canadian spirits using the water from Niagara Falls. They had been working with other export agents without success. They asked Canoe to explore opportunities for them in China and around the world. And our results over the past 7 months, we have an order to Japan. We have 2 prospects in China, a prospect in Taiwan, a prospect in Brazil, a prospect in Turkey, and 1 in the Netherlands. And we're forecasting 3 to 5 containers of whiskey to be shipped next year as a result of this diverse marketing strategy. So in short, diversify and deepen your exports with Canoe in 2022. Diversify within China, diversify across Asia, and diversify around the world. And then further deepen your understanding and relationships in market by working closely with in-market agents, meeting regularly with them, whether it's online or in person when possible again, and support marketing promotions and in-store marketing activities through your existing agents. And by using this strategy, you will have stable growth and a resilient business for years to come. So thank you. This is my part of the presentation. If you have any questions on this part of the presentation or would like a free consultation about opportunities in China and around the world, please feel free to contact me at this email address and that phone number. Now I'll pass the reins over to Tom, and he's going to take you through